Yes, this conversation today is the third in the series, talking about how we can participate in the evangelistic work of the church. This one is going to focus on something you received in the bulletin. It will also be connected to an email campaign that's going to be sent out, so you can print off additional ones if you need them. And it basically is focusing on how we invite other people to be connected to the Word and indirectly invited to church where that Word is going to be proclaimed. So I want to start initially by describing to you one of the 8 core principles of our church. As we have our council meetings, we do a reflection on one of the core principles at most of the meetings that we have. And the very first one says this: the witness of the church is for all people. Witness of the church is for all people. Anybody want to give me what text is being quoted with that? What do you think is behind that statement? We don't just make these things up. We're moved by the Word. What word?
Oh, I'm not 100% sure if the exact scripture, but I think it might have something to do with the new covenant.
Okay.
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
No.
Matthew 28, which is this new command, the Great Commission, that we would go and make disciples of all nations. You've heard that. Anybody know how it begins? That's not how it begins, to go and make disciples.
Just go ye?
No. Before that. It actually starts with go therefore.
Oh.
Well, the therefore is pointing to something else. Why? Go there. What did he just talk about? All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore. He's doing it by the authority he has as king, given to him by the Father. And so, what are we supposed to do? Go and make disciples. Secondly, how?
Teaching.
Before teaching? Baptizing them, and then teaching them to observe everything that I have told you. So my question for you then is, who is supposed to do that? Was it just the apostles? Was it pastors? It was disciples. Each one, there was a evangelism program years ago called Each One, Reach One. And the idea is, if you've got 2 billion disciples of Christ, and at the time 6 billion people in the world, if everyone reaches one in 3 years, if you even reach one per year, in theory, the world gets to know about Jesus, and that massive. When we think about it, I wonder how hard it is that you think today to actually make disciples of all nations. How hard is it? Is it pretty hard? Like say in America, how hard is it for us? Yeah, it's serious. There's no doubt. Again, I've talked about it before, where in our own lifetimes, depending on your age, in our lifetime, we were held in esteem by the society. Hospitals, social service agencies were established by churches. And when there was a crisis, a world war, or anything else, the churches were looked to for an understanding, a theological understanding. Where's God in all of this mess? And the faith. I can remember hearing conversations with the Archbishop of New York City, where he would speak and kind of interpret what was going on, that all of this was happening. So that was the way it began. And then as our society matured, that was when the society was in its infancy, perhaps. And then when you get to teenage years, and the society begins to look at the church, says, well, we'll call you if we need you. The church's word is irrelevant. We have science, we have math, we have business, we're involved in the world, and we'll call you if we need some questions solved about religion. The next development was really, we're kind of offended that the church has standards, and we don't want to really hear those. And it kind of offends us if you would bring those forward. So if you'll just sit over there, talk to yourselves. We don't want to hear any input into our society and our own decisions. It has now moved further than that. It's like a pendulum, and it is now swinging to a point where the society is saying not only is it offensive, but it's illegal. And for you to live out your faith by your standards, we do not want that imposed on anyone else in our society. They're still giving us realm within ourselves. So within our day school, we can set standards for teachers, we can set standards for pastors, for employees, but that's being assaulted in some ways by people who are saying they should not have a right to hold views that are different from our society, which is obvious. So we have some challenges when it comes to the proclamation of the word, to inviting others. How hard was it in the first church? How about if you were a Jew, you came from a Jewish family, was it tough to be a disciple of Christ? Sure. Oh my gosh, you were considered a heretic. It was blasphemy. The idea that you would believe that this Jesus fulfills those prophecies and is now the Messiah, that was not acceptable. And Christ talked about that if you are going to follow me, it may well cost you your family. So if you love your family more than me, you're not worthy of me, you're not going to be coming with me. How about the society? If you say Jesus is the Christ, what does that mean? Translate that from the Greek. That's a Greek word, Christos. Give me the English. Jesus is
Lord.
the King.
A king.
The King. The King. Not a king, but the King. And if Rome has a king and they rule that country, if you say Jesus is the king, your king, you follow his rules, not that of the society, that's treason. So St. Paul is arrested innumerable times, and early disciples were, and they were considered treasonous people, and there were kings who entertained their guests at night by tying Christians to posts and lighting fires. They were the torches, and that martyrdom, as tough as it was to be a disciple, that martyrdom was the greatest witness for the church. And the church exploded in its impact in the society, because the question would be raised, just think about it, you don't have to nod or anything, would you die for your company? Now, maybe the company is really nice, maybe it does good things, maybe it has a great health plan. Would you die for them? What would you die for? Maybe, Paul says, maybe for a righteous person you might be willing to die. But who for an evil person besides Christ? We are the sinners, and he has died for us. So the society looks at Christians back then with real disdain and hatred and attack. But at least they had trained ministers. I mean, at least No, actually, they had no trained ministers. There were different groups. There were no denominations. There was no funding source that said, here, everybody gives their money and it's going to develop these great national evangelism or global evangelism programs. It was a disciple sharing the faith in whatever way with another person. And of course, their life was part of that witness. If you were willing to die for some cause, people that gave them pause. I personally wouldn't die for anything. Why is this guy dying? All he has to say is Jesus is not Lord. He is not the Christ. That's all he has to say, and he gets his life. Why would these people give up anything except the faith? There's Martin Luther, who is hiding, well, not hiding, but he's protected by the Elector of Saxony up in the tower and has lots of time to read and write, and he writes prolifically. But the threat, there was a papal bull that was written. Everybody know what a papal bull, we don't have those so more. It's not just you could kill Luther, but if you killed him, there would be no penalty to your eternal soul. That's what a bull says. I, as the Pope, can free you, that is serving the greater church. And therefore, if you kill him, no penalty at all, won't even cost you any repentance at all. That's where Luther is. And he is proclaiming the word and saying that this word, let him take, remember from the famous hymn, let him take goods, fame, child, or spouse, they yet have nothing won, the kingdom ours remaineth. So this kingdom of God is a crucial thing, and it's been passed on to others. How does it compare to the early church, what we're doing today? It's in some ways easier. If you think about it, now I don't want you to respond because it could be embarrassing for all of us Lutherans. Why don't we? Do we have this fear that if we said to somebody, I'm a believer in Jesus, that they're going to get the cops, that that's illegal, or that our family would cut us off? No, what is it that makes it so hard for us to even invite somebody to worship? We don't want to offend them. I mean, what's the worst they might say? Well, I mean, they might say no. Okay. That would be a major takedown. Boy, that'd be a real diss on us if we invited them and they said no, or I'm busy, or I can't, or I don't want to, or you're one of those. It may get to the point shortly where to side with Christ, to be a disciple, to identify as a disciple of Christ, may be something that people, are you kidding? Are you one of those? I've had that in my ministry. As it's developed over the 40 years, there used to be kind of respect for the clergy. That's changed over the years. Very honestly, it has. And Jimmy Baker didn't help things. As a Protestant, we would send out invitations to people, and I would have people would call me because we put our phone number. And I said, listen, I know who you are. You think I'm not watching TV? And they'd go through the whole thing and then slam down the phone. And I'd say, well, no, I'm not part of that group. I'm not that kind of pastor, etc. Stealing money and all the rest. And then, of course, we had the issue with the priests. And with a broad swath, anybody connected as kind of a pastor or a priest, well, we know who you are. I had people say that. Where the collar in New York City, the collar identified me really more as a priest than as a pastor. Most pastors don't wear a collar. I do out of my Missouri Synod background and my understanding of call that identifies me. But in that case, it was identifying me with a group of people who did terrible things. And a lot with this broad brush, we were all considered these kind of evil people that would do these things, self-serving, not serving in the name of Christ. So it gets difficult for us to make witness, us as pastors, you as individuals in this day and age. But any help, how would we believe that we can do this kind of stuff? The way Matthew 28 ends. Anybody remember? Lo, to the end of the age. Lo, I am with you to the end of the age, which means he is with us. And being that it's his plan, not ours. Now, I want to read this. This is a little extensive, but it is the real central, and it's not something I memorized in confirmation class. It's not something that's all that familiar, but to me, ought to be as well known as Matthew 28. It is the very center of the mission of Christ. It is not John 3:16. God so loved the world, gave his son, whosoever believes should not perish but have eternal life. This is describing why Jesus came into the world from Colossians 1, beginning at verse 15. It's talking about Jesus. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For in him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or authorities. All things were created through him and for him. Through him. That word, let there be, brings into existence what we see. But that was made also for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. He is the head of the church, the body. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent. Here it ends. For in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of the cross. The mission of Christ, he didn't come to die. That's the tool. He is willing to die for the cause. And the cause of Christ is to gather all things together as one and present them to the Father, so that in him all things would be through him and in him in the Father. So the mission of Christ is to gather all things together as one. So we might be talking about how to have peace in the church, how Matthew 18 is a crucial thing. First go, if somebody offended you, go and speak to them. That's part of that, keeping the church as one, working to bring peace. When we share the peace in church, that's a peace which the world cannot give, which surpasses human understanding, which we carry with us when we go to our homes or our families. These are extraordinarily trying times at Christmas time. The number of suicide rates go up, depression goes up, visiting to psychiatrists and psychologists go up. Why? They see on TV what a happy family looks like, and it doesn't look like mine. You know, I will never be able to do that. If we ever got that many people around that turkey, fights would be, I'm going to McDonald's. I'm going to get a turkey at McDonald's. So a real challenge for people. Come on in, Tom. Over there. Over here. So that's Christ's work. And I want to talk, we have talked previously about waving at strangers going by. Now that's pretty difficult for a lot of reasons. They don't know who we are. They may have had a bad experience before. We're strangers. They're taken aback. If the guy down the street is holding up a sign, "We buy gold," they know why he's there. When somebody dressed in a white dress is standing out front or in regular clothes waving, they don't know why we are waving. They may or may not have a connection to us. After a while, if we do it, they begin to get a sense, who waves at me? People who know me. Maybe they remember, because I drive this road all the time, that we're kind of friends. I'm more a friend to that guy than my social media stuff, where I've never met these people that are my friends. I got 3,000 friends. I've never seen one of them, except online, their picture. These people seem to be waving all the time. Maybe that church is friendly. It's a real challenge for us to do strangers and invite them. And if they actually did come, they walk in. They don't, many times, know our liturgy, our worship. They don't know where to go. We have a greeter at the door, and when you walk in, let's say the back door, there's no parking on the side. You pull into the back. There's a door. You walk in. Everybody's sitting down eating. So I like this church, and you have food, and they go home. How would they know any different? What does church mean here? Those of you who have not been to, say, a Disciples of Christ worship service or a Greek Orthodox worship service, and you walked into a traditional Greek Orthodox church, and you walked in, and you came into a room, there's no pews, there's no seats or anything else. I expect you'd keep looking. But that is where they worship. They stand for the service. There's no clock on the wall. People are wandering in and out all the time. The liturgy for the Greek Orthodox is, by definition of the word, the work of the people. And they don't believe it ends with the benediction. They can leave before that, because the work of the people is out in the world as well. So they float in and out, and in the most traditional of the Greek Orthodox, there are no pews. So you can imagine when somebody, let's say, what percentage of people have never been in church? Whatever percentage it is, do you think it's increasing or decreasing? Yeah, it is increasing. They're born, they're a handful. When they get old enough to obey me, which is never, then we'll go to church, and they're going to be able to sit there and, all this challenge, and you go in, and when somebody walks into our church, through the back door, very difficult, side door, if the greeter isn't there, if nobody's welcoming them, they walk in, and there's a room. Doesn't look like the room we'll worship in. I could go to the left. There are some lights on there. I go straight across. There's another building over there. Or I can go to the right. Oh, that looks like church. And what time and standing and sitting and all the rest. It's very difficult for someone who comes by themselves to automatically, there's nothing automatic about them having a good experience. And if nobody's at the greeter table, or somebody is, and they heard us encourage people to sign, and so they've got them strong armed, they got the arm behind the back, sign here, and you're rifling through their purse to find out their address because the pastor said it'd be really helpful to get their address. There can be all kinds of things that go wrong when somebody is visiting by themselves. But when you know somebody, and each of us knows somebody. Now it's narrowing down. We know fewer and fewer people. The studies indicate that right now we're less than 2 people we know as friends. Used to be more before social media, where I make all my contacts through them. But almost anybody living in apartment complexes, they will tell me over and over again, I came from the Midwest, small little town where 250 people. If I sneezed, half the city said, God bless you. And now I go in and out of my apartment. I have no clue who lives next door. I mean, the most I do is say hi to him. I don't know these people, and I'm new at work, and everybody's got their own cliques and groups and stuff. And so I was thinking of looking for a church, and they walk in here and don't know anybody. You know some people, and we encourage you because they know you. Now that could be good or bad. I've mentioned that I don't have a sticker on my car that says, follow me to Shepherd of the Woods, for a variety of reasons, one of which is my driving is New York style, and I can't help it. Fortunately, though, I have people who help me out. John Meyer followed me down the service road and told me what speed I was going, which he thought was inappropriate. I don't know why. There was nobody in the way. Anyway, but my life is a witness and has an impact on any conversation I have with somebody. I've been here 27 years. I've been coming down a service road for a long time. Only once was I so late that I was not on their bumper, but I was as close to that bumper, and they turned into church. And only once did I actually drive by, pretending that I wasn't going in there too, thinking maybe they would be out of their car and inside, and I wouldn't have to admit, I was covering my collar as I realized I turned in. But our lives do have an impact. If you are at odds with everybody you work to, going up and saying, hey, have you found a church for Christmas, is probably not going to be effective. No, I haven't. Could you tell me what yours is? Because I'm not going there. That's what they might feel. So what we're doing, if you maybe do some reflection. It's like Lent, it's Advent, preparing. Do a reflection on yourself. If people were to write 10 things about you, what would it be? Jen is here with the kids, and she said her Ellie's teacher, instead of having the kids exchange gifts, which gets to be a problem, write down 5 things about your classmates. And the joy that Jen felt when they said about Ellie, she's always there for me. This is kindergarten. And they didn't spell it right, but you could tell what they meant. That will have an impact. So who are you at your job, in your neighborhood? Like one of the commercials, family getting ready for dinner. I would work with them on this commercial, but nonetheless, they're all getting ready for Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, I guess. And the kids, 2 kids, one runs up to the house across the street, leaves a note on the step, see that, and runs back. Yes. There are a couple of things I don't like about it. Why did the kid think